Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, the 25th of February, 2019, the 20th of Adar Aleph 5779, coming to you this morning from a beautiful Jerusalem, Israel, our eternal capital. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook. Check out my new page, Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism, on Twitter at Josh Hasten, and of course my new Instagram page. Check that out as well. Coming up after the break, Ruthie Bloom, renowned columnist for the Jerusalem Post and JNS News. She is also the editor at the Gatestone Institute. She will be my guest coming up in just a few minutes. Until then, we will get to a little bit of news here from Jerusalem. Now, election fever is in the air leading up to the April 9th vote for the next Knesset here in Israel. I mean, it's just out of control, folks. I mean, we're not even in March, and elections are just dominating the news here. It's 24 hours a day, all the different things going on in regard to the election. The latest, perhaps, news, or the most significant in recent days, is the fact that AIPAC decided that it was going to get involved in Israel's internal elections, and also the AJC there in the United States getting involved, making statements against the Otzma Party. The Jerusalem Post yesterday, including our good friend Gil Hoffman, reported that America's largest Israel advocacy organization issued an extraordinary rebuke of Prime Minister Netanyahu's government on Friday, responding to his move to ally with the extremist party under intense political pressure. That's Otzma ahead of the April 9th election. On Wednesday, Netanyahu supported an agreement between Beit HaYehudi, the Jewish Home Party, and Otzma, an offshoot of what they are calling here an organization banned in the 1980s. That's Rabbi Meir Kahana's organization. So you have the Prime Minister of Israel making a deal, Otzma being combining rather with the Jewish Home Party. This is all, by the way, technical, okay, and it's complicated how it works. But Otzma is part of the Jewish Home Party, at least during the elections, and the plan most likely is they will separate after the elections. The goal is Netanyahu for him to form a large right bloc in order to block the left. But people are up in arms about Otzma Yehudit. Of course, Bibi, our prime minister, getting criticized left and right and center and from everyone about Otzma Yehudit. Now, whether you like Otzma or not, the issue, in my opinion, here is the great hypocrisy. The hypocrisy by AIPAC, the hypocrisy by others who are going crazy about Otzma, but for years had no problem when it came to rebuking those who negotiate with terrorists in the Palestinian Authority. Yes, you could make the case that Israel has decided years ago that the PLO was the official representative of the Palestinian so-called Palestinians here. But over the years, they've proven their true colors, especially in the year 2000 with the beginning of the Oslo War, what some call the Second Intifada, in terms of the suicide bombings and buses being blown up in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and in other places. In other words, why not take the Palestinian Authority to task? Why not take the Israeli parties willing to negotiate with the Palestinian Authority to task and not just focus here on Otzma? So it is hypocrisy. At the end of the day, though, Netanyahu is supposed to address AIPAC. He was invited to address the policy conference next month. He decided he was not going to respond, according to the Post, to criticism from American Jewish leaders, but he did respond from criticism from the Blue and White Party, that's Benny Gantz's party, and other political opponents. He accused them of a hypocritical double standard. Quote, it is absurd that they rule out encouraging members on the right, but consider it legitimate to ensure that insiders and spies against Israel enter the Knesset, referring to votes by the Labor Party and Meretz Party and the Central Elections Committee to permit then Balad leader Azmi Bishara to run for Knesset. Remember, he was the spy. He was charged with treason and espionage, spying for Hezbollah against Israel. Yet Labor and Meretz came out in support of Bishara. He was actually stripped with his Knesset immunity. He fled to Qatar. They supported him. Netanyahu also noted that in 1999, Ehud Barak, who was running for prime minister, participated in a rally with the extremist Northern Islamic movement head Sheikh Raed Salah. He was later convicted of incitement. So the bottom line here is whether you like Otzma, don't like Otzma, it's the hypocrisy. That's really what gets to me here. And Bibi, of course, walking that fine line because he is going to be speaking at AIPAC next month, even though they condemned this merger. At the same time, I am not a member of Otzma. I was doing research yesterday to learn more about their current policies, and you can find some English translations of what Otzma has to offer, what they have to say. And again, I'm not a party member, and I'm not going to be outwardly and supporting Otzma. I don't really reveal who I do support on this show. That's while in Israel, it's not like the U.S. I don't know if you know this, Ben Bresky, engineer extraordinaire, who's sitting next to me. In the U.S., you can't go up to somebody and say, who are you voting for? It's like not polite. But in Israel, nobody cares. Israel people ask you all the time, who are you voting for? Who are you voting for? I tend not to disclose that information, let people know who I am voting for. But nevertheless, this I would agree with in terms of Otzma. In terms of this specific policy, they are calling for full Israeli control from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. I agree with that 100%. And the cancellation of the Oslo Accords. So in those two regards, I agree with them 100%. I think that's the way all the other parties on the right should be approaching this election. Jewish sovereignty, Israeli sovereignty over all the land of Israel, and once and for all, getting rid of the Oslo Accords, throwing them into the dustbin of history. They've only brought death and destruction here for Israelis. It's also been bad for Arabs as well. So I would say that the parties who call themselves or consider themselves to be on the right, they should adapt these two approaches, these two bullet points when it comes to moving forward. I think they should take those into account during the next election. In other news here in Israel, we'll get away from the politics for a little bit, and we'll get Ruthie Bloom on to go back to the politics. On Friday, we had another incident of agricultural terrorism in Gush Etzion, and this is just sick, okay? The community of Nokdim in eastern Gush Etzion, what do? They plant trees in memory of Ori Ansbacher, may God avenge her blood, the young 19-year-old teen who was murdered in a brutal attack by an Arab terrorist just 2 weeks ago in Jerusalem. She lived in Tekoa. So here you go, residents planting trees in her memory. And what happens? They wake up Sunday morning and realize that their Arab neighbors uprooted all of the trees in her memory. Now, did they know the trees were planted in her memory? It is possible, since there was a confrontation about the trees on Friday. But it doesn't matter, even if they didn't know. These are people, these are agricultural terrorists. They are out to destroy the land of Israel. They're out to take their hate out on the trees and the cherry orchards and the wine vineyards. This is what they do. And it always starts with the trees, and God forbid it shouldn't happen, moves on to the people. But this is agricultural terrorism. Once again, in Gush Etzion, we've been talking about this now for a long time. It's been going on for a very, very long time. We need to do more to protect our residents, of course, and our trees as well. It's part of the land of Israel, and that is just the beginning, and that's the fear. It starts with the trees and moves on. But these are agricultural terrorists, and they should be caught and punished accordingly. At the same time, the Jerusalem Post, that was, by the way, Israel National News reporting. To be clear, the J-Post talks about the president of Germany the other day, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, sends a note of congratulations, a telegram to Iran's Mullah regime in honor of their 40th anniversary, the 40th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, in the name of the Federal Republic citizens. So here you have Germany lauding Iran, sending them a congratulations on their 40th anniversary, that 1979 revolution in which Iran was turned on its head, taken over by the extremists, by the mullahs, and somehow Germany is congratulating them. I'm not understanding that in this day and age. I don't know. Is this part of politics? Is this because they want to keep the Iranian nuclear deal going? Whatever it is, Germany, shame on you for praising the regime in Iran. Speaking of Europe, we'll turn now to the UK's Labour Party. Their leader, Jeremy Corbyn, reported by the J-Post, apparently expressing understanding for how Palestinian suicide bombers commit their acts of terrorism. During a debate at Cambridge University, during his comments, discovered by a UK freelance journalist, posted on Twitter, Corbyn recalls how Palestinian youths had told him of people they knew who had been involved in suicide bombing and how it was a result of the hopelessness and occupation. And then Corbyn said, well, of course, because, suicide bombings happen because of the hopelessness, because of the poverty, because of life under Israeli control and whatnot. He made that claim. However, a detailed study reported here in this article by Jeremy Sharon says that a study of suicide bombers in 2007, specifically Palestinian suicide bombers, conducted by the Claude Bererbi Institute. I'm not familiar with that. He's actually a professor. Claude Bererbi at the Hebrew University showed that Palestinians, as they call them, with higher income levels and a higher level of education were more likely to have been suicide bombers. So Corbyn expressing his belief that because of the way Israel treats the Arabs and because of poverty and whatnot, that's why they're blowing themselves up. I would also turn to the middle class, 19 hijackers and terrorists from Al-Qaeda who took down the Twin Towers, who came from middle class to well-off families. This is not about poverty. This is not about land. This is about the fact that our enemies do not want to see an Israeli presence, a Jewish presence in the Middle East, point blank. But Jeremy Corbyn, once again, nothing surprises me when it comes to Corbyn, the head of the UK Labour Party here, who's buddies with Hamas and Hezbollah, who he once referred to them as his friends. So nothing really surprises me there. On some positive news before we get to our guest, Ruthie Bloom, Israel, the fourth country, which hopefully will send a what do you call it? I'm not very good at the space terminology. Is it a rocket? Is it a spaceship? Whatever it is, to the moon. Is it a ship, Ben Bresky? A spaceship? A spacecraft. So after the former Soviet Union, the United States, and China, Israel seeking to become the fourth country to send a spacecraft to the moon. How many countries? What are there? 200 countries in the world and little Israel. What nachat, what joy, what honor are these astronauts? I'll make it clear. It's not an astronaut project, but they're astronauts who are working on the ground, and those involved in the space program. It's an unmanned vehicle, let's make it clear, called Bereshit. How wonderful is that it's called Bereshit? It successfully launched early Friday morning. It is now beginning its path to the moon. And again, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to space travel and the whole science behind it. But that being said, Israel to become the fourth country with a presence on the moon, just unbelievable, remarkable. So anyway, we are going to take a break right now. Coming back with journalist and columnist Ruthie Bloom. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, check out my new page, Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism. And on Twitter, at Josh Hasten. Be right back with Ruthie Bloom. Don't touch that dial.
For Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, this coming new moon, we are doing the Land of Israel Network Shabbaton at the Dead Sea. called the Israel Inspired Retreat, where there's going to be Torah study and connection and meditation and prayer, and we're going to be able to connect and to talk about everything that's going on in Israel today on spiritual levels. It's going to be a really special weekend. You can find out about it on thelandofisrael.travel. That's thelandofisrael.travel. You can see all the details there. We'd love to have you join us.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, the 25th of February, 2019, the 20th of Adar Aleph 5779. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. We're going to go to the phone right now. A good friend is on the line, Ruthie Bloom. She is the editor at the Gatestone Institute, also a renowned columnist for JNS News and the Jerusalem Post. Ruthie, it's been a long time. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, it has, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope all is well with you.
It is.
Excellent. So, as you are well aware and very involved, Israel heading to an election on April the 9th, and you've been extremely vocal in your columns and on social media about everything going on right now. Your latest column on in the Jerusalem Post on Friday is titled "Right from Wrong When Bubble Dwellers Go Too Far." And when you talk about bubble dwellers, you talk about those who are, I guess, enclosed in their own bubble, not aware of the reality. And specifically, you were talking about Israeli Resilience Party leader Benny Gantz. And you also mentioned a journalist here, Oshrat Cutler, who went on a rant on her program, I think it was last Saturday night, against IDF soldiers here in Israel. So let's start with Benny Gantz, if you can. Let us know
Yes.
about this bubble that you believe that he is living in and what it means as we head forward here during election season.
Well, I think I was referring in particular to a speech he made when he was announcing his platform and showing all well, not exactly his platform. He doesn't have a platform. He was announcing the candidates on his Knesset list for the election. And in his speech, he proceeded to attack Netanyahu for a host of things that were just mind-boggling. Two of them, he made Netanyahu sound like some kind of draft dodger who absconded from Israel to live in the high life in America. He made fun of Netanyahu's perfect English and basically said that while he himself, Gantz, was in the trenches with his soldiers, Netanyahu was sipping on, I don't know, wine and staying in fancy hotels and living in television studios with heavy makeup on. So I blasted him for that, because if he thinks that that's the way to attack Netanyahu, the entire country knows that Netanyahu he's been heroic as a soldier and an officer in one of the most elite units in the IDF, and that his English is not a source of shame, but a source of national pride. So I said that he's living in a bubble if he thinks that this is something Israelis are going to identify with. If he wanted to attack Netanyahu for policies that Netanyahu espouses, he should do that. That's what a contender does. But instead, in his other speeches, he basically emulated Netanyahu. He said, "I'll be tough on Iran," for example.
I mean, he essentially attacked Netanyahu's strengths instead of going after his weaknesses. So I don't know who's running the show over there in terms of campaign strategy, whether you like the prime minister or not, but he attacked his successes as opposed to focusing on his failures or weaknesses. That's what he did.
That's what he did. And he has a collection of people of very, very different political ideologies in his party. But what they seem to have in common is just that they all agree that they want Netanyahu out. And that's not a policy.
Right.
And it's, what's also very interesting, I think that you're going to see in that party that it leans heavily socialist. aside from the fact that it includes head of the Histadrut labor union, aside from that, I thought it was very telling responses I received on social media to praising Israel for going to the moon. We just had a moon launch of a space robot that is going to land on the moon in April, and you have no idea how many Gantz supporters commented by saying, "Well, it was funded by philanthropists," as though that's a dirty word. So, oh, you mean if you don't fund it from the government from our tax shekels, it doesn't count, you know? Right. I think it's worrisome. Those responses were very worrisome.
That's another example of picking on something that's good, that's positive.
Right. But philanthropy is a great Jewish tradition.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yes, and not only that, but it's a great solution to not having to constantly empty government tills for things. I mean, it's unbelievable that this should be a source of criticism.
Now, at the same time, I brought it up earlier on the show, the biggest story since the weekend is the fact that you have the Otzma Party merging with the Jewish Home Party, I guess under the direction of Prime Minister Netanyahu, in order to try to form the largest right-wing coalition possible. However, you are getting many people criticizing the Prime Minister, both left, right, and center. In America, you have the AJC and AIPAC. Here locally, you have many other parties and leading rabbis and whatnot criticizing the Prime Minister for, even if it's a temporary joining of parties, of joining with Otzma for the purpose of forming that coalition. Again, you know, everyone says that after the election, the most likely they'll split up right away. But what is your take on the strategy aspect of what the Prime Minister did? Do you think it's acceptable? Do you think he did the right thing? Or do you think he should have gone another route?
Well, these are, what's interesting is that question sort of has two angles. One is it acceptable morally or ethically or something like that if you think that the Otzma Party is too similar to Rabbi Kahana, the late Rabbi Kahana's politics, or if you think it was a smart political move on Netanyahu's part. And I think there are two different answers here. One is that the courts and the election committee in Israel allowed that party to run in this election, whereas Kahana's party was banned from the Knesset. This already means that there's a distinction between Otzma and Rabbi Kahana's party, because that one was banned and this one is not. So right there, I think that the critics are going too far. Second, I think that a rabbi who used his pulpit this Shabbat to compare Otzma to Otzma's platform to the Nuremberg laws was way out of line. You do not compare a party that does not call for the murder of anybody, but the loyalty of Israeli citizens, to compare those to Nazis. But whether Netanyahu was smart to do this, I think maybe he wasn't. This may be something that harms him on election day. So it may not, because Netanyahu, I often think he's doing something foolish and then he wins anyway. Right. Therefore, I'm not sure if I'm right. But the outcry around this indicates that maybe he should have spent more time trying to, unify the right with Naftali Bennett's party, the New Right, or others. That's why I'm not sure whether it was a smart move or not.
We are speaking to renowned journalist Ruthie Bloom. She writes for the Jerusalem Post and JNS, as well as Gatestone. Now, the other subject you brought up in your column is this TV personality, Oshrat Cutler, who made some statements during a broadcast about a week and a half ago, reporting on the arrest of 5 soldiers from the Netzach Yehuda battalion, And she basically said that the reason that this incident happened, they're accused of mishandling Arabs. She said, when you send your children to the army, they are kids. You send them to the territories, they come back as human animals. And then, as you pointed out, she blamed, of course, the occupation, so-called, and then she doubled down on her comments. She issued a kind of an apology, and then she kept going. She kept with it. She doubled down, as you say.
It's funny. I wouldn't have called it an apology. What happened was that there were so many complaints lodged with the TV station and the broadcasting authority and all that, and her bosses called her in for a disciplinary conversation / hearing. So the next time she went on the air, she said, let me clarify.
Right, that's better.
And she then, in a snide attack on her viewers, she said, let me clarify to any of those who weren't listening to the first part of what I said and who misunderstood what I said. And then she doubled down and said, I wasn't saying that it's the soldiers' fault. I was saying that they're also victims of the occupation. That's what she basically said. And, now she hadn't anticipated that she was going to get all that outcry from the public against her because, for one thing, her whole channel is left-wing.
Right.
The channel she's on, Channel 13, she also, I'm sure her bosses are all left-wing, and all the people surrounding her are left-wing. So it never occurred to her that the audience would, not nod and say, you're right, the occupation is at fault for this. She doesn't realize that more than half the country, first of all, doesn't think that it's an occupation. But even those who do say, really, it's not the fault of that. It's the other way around. It's that the Palestinians don't want peace no matter what borders they have, and they don't want a deal, and they don't want a state. That's what most Israelis have come to realize. And the fact that a broadcaster, that veteran, does not know that about the society in which she lives just shows that she lives in a bubble.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately taken a long time, and we've suffered many deaths as a result of the various wars and so-called intifadas and whatnot over the years. But I think that the fact that Israel, time and time again, and hopefully it will be the case this time as well, recognizes the fact that we elect those to the right. We finally recognized the fact it was a painful price. I don't know why people didn't wake up earlier. Recognize the fact that the reason we have the problems we have today, and they say it openly within the Palestinian authorities, certainly in Hamas, that they will not accept any Jewish state of Israel. They will not accept 1 inch of the land of Israel being under control of the Jews. Certainly they won't recognize the words. They won't say the words Jewish state of Israel. And that is truly what is our main obstacle to any type of true peace and normalcy here in the region. But as you said, most Israelis now understand that after all this time. So she needs to wake up, first of all, and it's despicable the way she spoke about the IDF as a whole, and as you said, blaming the victims and not blaming those responsible.
But furthermore, there's one other point here, and that is that the soldiers accused of beating up a Palestinian in their custody they are on trial. They're right now. There's some kind of plea deal being made. The point is that the army and the justice system do investigate and punish soldiers who do something they're not allowed to do to Palestinians or to other Jews or to anything. Okay, right. The system here does it. Okay, so to behave as though somehow all these soldiers just get out of hand is ridiculous. These were 5 boys, and they were charged, investigated. There's a trial. That's what I'm saying. That instead of praising Israeli society for living in this impossible situation, and yet holding anybody who's suspected of doing wrongdoing accountable, that should be praised, not attacked.
Ruthie Bloom, we are out of time, but I want to make sure the audience knows how they can find your columns and your writing. What is the best way to view the important information you're disseminating through your columns these days?
Well, JNS is jns.org is online, and I usually share my pieces on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and my Jerusalem Post columns in the Jerusalem Post on the website, jpost.com.
And oftentimes on the back page on Friday, or the key
That's
page.
right. It's every other week. Every other week on the back page on Friday.
Right. Ruthie Bloom, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's always great talking to you. It's been too long. We have to do this more often.
Thanks, Josh. Great talking to you.
I appreciate it so much. Have a great day. And I would definitely want to speak again as we get close to that April 9th election, because it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. Yes. All the best. Have a great day.
You too, Josh. Bye.
And that is going to do it for today. You are listening to Israel Uncensored here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is the 25th of February, 2019, the 20th of Adar Aleph 5779, as we get closer to Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, and then, of course, Purim, Pesach. It's all happening, folks, and it's beautiful to be here broadcasting from Jerusalem. Shout out to Binyamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire. Without him, there's no sound. And also Tabitha Epstein, who makes sure all of these programs get up online. And, of course, all of the other wonderful hosts here on the Land of Israel Network. Oh, there's one other thing I would like to mention before we wrap it up for today. If you haven't seen the ads, don't miss the Land of Israel Network's Israel-inspired retreat at the Dead Sea. There are only 10 rooms remaining, folks. Book fast. It is going to sell out. I'm talking about Shabbat Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet. That is March 7th through 10th at the 5-star Royal Dead Sea Hotel and Resort. You're going to have Rabbi Jeremy Genpel, Rabbi Ari Abramowitz, Rabbi Yishai Fleischer, and their respected spouses delivering a uplifting Shabbat full of prayers and lectures and Torah and a women's program and kids programs and all this stuff at a 5-star resort over there at the Dead Sea. So go to the Land of Israel. Here's the exact URL, www.thelandofisrael.travel, www.thelandofisrael.travel, and make your reservations. Just a few rooms remaining there for that special Shabbat program. Didn't want to forget about that. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Have a great week from a beautiful, beautiful Jerusalem, Israel's eternal capital. Shalom, shalom.
Torah thoughts and inspiration from the heartland of Israel. Tune in every week to The Soul of Israel with Rabbi Shlomo Katz on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.